The moment I realized something was truly broken wasn't when she called me her roommate in front of her colleagues. That was just the punchline. The real moment came 10 minutes earlier, when I was standing alone by a row of flickering scented candles in a stranger's penthouse bathroom, wiping buffalo sauce off my tie with a paper towel that said, "Dare to dream." I remember looking at my own reflection, eyes puffy, tie crooked, the faint outline of sweat creeping through my shirt, and thinking, why does she even want me here? Not in a sad, poetic way. In a literal, logical way. Why invite me to this overly catered circus if she was just going to pretend I was her tenant? Kendra had texted me earlier that morning like it was any other day. Work event tonight. Business casual. No flannel. No flannel. That was her humor. It was always halfway between sarcasm and mild contempt. I showed up anyway. I shouldn't have. But I did, because 5 years together does that to you. It trains you to ignore the red flags and fixate on the smallest crumbs of affection, like the fact that she reminded me to dress decently. Wow, so thoughtful. The venue was nauseatingly polished. A rooftop lounge with violin music, tiny food in geometrical shapes, and name tags that cost more than my shoes. Kendra was magnetic in a way I hadn't seen in a long time, hair done perfectly, laughter on command, moving between conversations like a politician who's winning. I hung near the wall. I always do. I've mastered the art of looking busy with a drink. Then came the moment. She beckoned me over barely with 2 fingers while talking to a guy in a blazer so tight I could see the outline of his wallet. He asked her who I was. I remember the question perfectly. "Oh, is this your plus one?" She didn't even flinch. "This is my roommate, Sheldon." Roommate. The word came out of her mouth like a reflex. Like it was easier than saying boyfriend, partner, significant other. I half expected her to add, "He's harmless," for flair. There was a beat. 1 second where everyone sort of smiled and nodded and moved on. But in my head, it rang out like a fire alarm. 5 years. Rent. Groceries. Vet bills. Trips. Arguments. Apologies. Promises. And now roommate? I didn't say anything at the party. Didn't make a scene. I'm not built for scenes. I just stood there and listened as she talked to her boss about brand metrics, pretending I didn't exist. But something clicked that night. Not a dramatic snap. More like a quiet shift. A final reshaping of the mental image I'd built around us. The next morning, I packed 2 suitcases. Took my books, my records, my pride. And I left one note. Just one. "Good luck paying rent, roommate." That was 5 days ago. And now she's calling. And texting. And sending long, confusing emails about miscommunication and missing me and can we talk. But what she doesn't know is, I already did talk. For years. Softly. Gently. Repeatedly. She just never listened. And what I've just discovered since I left. Let's just say the roommate line was the least of her secrets. The call started exactly 47 minutes after I dropped the key through the slot in our door. I remember that detail not because I was tracking it, but because I happened to glance at the clock in my cousin's guest room when the first ring lit up my phone. I didn't answer. I just watched it buzz across the nightstand like a cockroach in a panic. Then came the texts, frantic, fragmented, like she was throwing darts in the dark hoping one would hit something soft. "Where are you? Are you serious right now? This is so dramatic, Sheldon. Come home. Wait, did you actually move out? Please call me. We need to talk." I sat there reading them with a strange sense of numbness. Like watching a stranger try to unlock a door you've already walked through for good. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't power. It was emptiness. The kind of silence that fills your chest when you realize you were never really seen, just tolerated. But it wasn't the text that got to me. It was the 7th message, the one she clearly hadn't meant to send. A screenshot. A literal screenshot of a group chat. Her phone background still visible at the top. I don't know if she sent it by mistake or just forgot to crop it, but there it was. A message from someone saved as Zach W. Work. That said, "Elmeo, wait, did he actually leave? That's wild." Another message from a contact named Mel. "Told you calling him roommate would light a fire. 5 years though? That's cold." I stared at that screen for a long time, trying to decide whether it was real. Trying to convince myself that maybe this was just banter. A misunderstanding. Maybe she hadn't been mocking me behind my back. Maybe it was just dark humor, or a joke taken out of context. But then I saw the last message from her, the one in the same group chat, the one with her name attached. I didn't think he'd actually grow a spine. I thought he'd pout and sulk like always. That broke me. I had defended her to my friends more times than I could count. When they said she seemed cold, that she never came to game night, that she always corrected me in public, I told them she was just focused, just direct, just stressed. I took all those little humiliations and wrapped them in excuses because I was too afraid to admit what was becoming obvious. She didn't love me. Maybe hadn't for a long time. Still, I didn't reply. I wanted to, believe me. I typed 3 or 4 messages. Deleted them all. What do you say to someone who publicly mocked your entire existence and only noticed you were gone because the rent is now double? By day 3, her tone shifted. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. You took it the wrong way. Please, just talk to me. Classic. Not, I was wrong. Just, you misunderstood. Like I misread the word roommate or imagined 5 years of partnership that apparently only existed in my head. But something kept gnawing at me, a question I hadn't dared to ask yet. Why did she invite me to that party at all? She could have gone solo, made up an excuse. Why bring me just to publicly reduce me to a tenant? The answer came from an unexpected place, my email inbox. It was a message from a woman named Marcy. I barely recognized the name at first, but then I remembered. She was the intern turned admin at Kendra's office. We'd met once at a holiday thing. She'd spilled cider on my shoes and apologized 100 times. Her email subject line was short. You don't deserve this. Inside, it said, Hi Sheldon. You don't know me well, but I wanted to say something because I think you should know. Kendra's been seeing someone else at the office. For a while now. I didn't want to be involved, but the way she humiliated you at the party really bothered me. I'm sorry. Just thought you should know. Marcy. I sat there in the dark rereading it again and again, every letter etching itself deeper into my skull. It wasn't just the word roommate. It wasn't just the screenshot. It was a pattern. A slow erosion of respect that had finally revealed the truth. I had been the placeholder. The backup. The dependable guy who paid half the bills and kept the cats alive. But she had already moved on emotionally. She'd just forgotten to tell me. And the worst part? She still had my name on the lease. I never thought I'd be in this situation, not just heartbroken, but legally entangled with someone who treated me like background noise. The worst part about shared leases? You can't ghost your way out of them. You can pack your boxes, write a clever goodbye note, even delete every picture from your phone, but the bank doesn't care. Your name is inked on paper, and so is your responsibility. And she knew that. She counted on it. After reading Marcy's email, I sat there for hours. It was one of those moments where the world tilts and your memories start rewriting themselves. All the nights she stayed late? Not meetings. The sudden shower when she got home? Not stress sweat. The mysterious Uber charges she said were accidental? Not accidents. And suddenly, it all aligned. Every odd moment, every clipped excuse, every time she chose her phone over me at dinner. Still, some part of me, the cowardly, codependent part, hoped it wasn't true. Maybe Marcy was confused. Maybe the group chat was out of context. Maybe Kendra had just made some bad jokes, crossed a line, panicked when I left. That part of me wanted to believe there was something worth salvaging. That maybe, if I just sat down with her, we could talk like adults. Figure things out. So I made the mistake of answering her call. It was a Tuesday evening. I remember because my cousin's neighbor was mowing his lawn with headphones in, dancing like no one was watching. I stared at him from the porch while the phone rang in my hand. Kendra's name pulsed on the screen like a warning light. I picked up. She didn't say hello. Just launched into a breathless, semi-panicked rant about how childish I'd been, how I'd embarrassed her by vanishing, how she had people asking questions and didn't know what to tell them. I didn't respond for a while. I just let her talk. When she finally paused, I asked her the one question I had no script for. Who's Zach? Silence. Then, what are you talking about? The group chat. You accidentally sent me a screenshot. He knew I left. Before you told anyone. More silence. She laughed. That bitter, empty kind of laugh that people use when they're cornered, but too proud to admit it. Oh, that's Zach, she said, like we were discussing a barista. He's just a friend. We joke around. And Mel? I asked. She said the roommate line would light a fire. Sounds like a plan, not a joke. You're overanalyzing, she said quickly. You always do this. Make everything bigger than it is. That's why it's so hard to talk to you sometimes. That right there? That sentence? It snapped something in me. Because for 5 years, I had twisted myself into a balloon animal trying not to be too much. I shrank every emotion down to polite size. I translated my pain into silence because I thought that's what love demanded. And now I was being told, again, that even that was too much for her. So I asked one last question. I didn't even expect an honest answer. I just needed to hear the lie for myself. Are you sleeping with someone else? There was a pause. Not long enough to seem shocked. Just long enough to rearrange a story. I don't think that's any of your business anymore, she finally said. That was it. That was the truth. Not in the words, but in the evasion. Not a no. Not a denial. Just a declaration of detachment. I guess not, I said quietly, and hung up. I stared at my reflection in the sliding glass door of my cousin's patio for a long time after that. I didn't look strong, or noble, or wise. I looked like a man who had spent 5 years building a home on land someone else already planned to sell. But here's the twist I didn't expect. The next day, I got a call from our landlord. He sounded confused. Asked if I was planning to terminate the lease early. Said he got an email from Kendra requesting full control of the property and asking to have my name removed. Removed. Like I was never part of it. Like I was a smudge on a photo she wanted retouched. But it gets worse. The same email was CC'd to someone I didn't recognize, Zachary Weston, a real estate agent. She wasn't just cutting me off. She was trying to sell the apartment. And she hadn't even told me. At first, I thought the landlord had made a mistake. Maybe he'd misread her email. Maybe she was just inquiring about options. But when I asked him to forward it to me, I sat in my cousin's kitchen, a bowl of dry cereal in front of me, and read every cold, calculated line with growing disbelief. She wrote, "Given the circumstances, I'd like to begin the process of assuming sole responsibility for the lease. My former co-tenant has vacated the premises without formal notice. I've contacted a local agent, Zachary Weston, to assist with options for listing or subletting if necessary. Please advise on next steps." She called me her former co-tenant. Not partner, not boyfriend, not even roommate. Just a footnote. An administrative inconvenience. The only part of the email that had any emotion was the signature. "Thanks again for your understanding. Best, Kendra. Best." I stared at the screen, letting the words burn into my brain. She had already lined up a realtor. She had a plan. While I was crying in the shower like a ghost in a shampoo commercial, she was laying groundwork to erase me not just from her life, but from the very space we shared. Like I'd been some temporary intern who overstayed their welcome. And yet, I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I opened my laptop and dug through our shared Google Drive, the one we used to organize everything from bills to grocery lists to pet vaccinations. I had access to every folder. She hadn't locked me out yet. That's when I found a document titled Q4 Projections Private. Curious, I opened it. It was an Excel sheet, masked as a work file. But as I scrolled down, I realized it wasn't about finances at all. It was a personal budget, a transition budget. There were categories labeled solo rent, new furniture, deposit for condo, and my heart genuinely stopped here, vacation, Z, plus me, Jan/February. She'd been planning to replace me for months. And that line, Z, plus me, there was no doubt anymore. Zach wasn't just some work buddy. He was the upgrade. The post-Sheldon reboot. I guess I'd been the beta version, loyal, supportive, easily silenced. And now she was preparing to roll out the new model with zero delay. I didn't know what to do with that discovery. I paced the kitchen for a solid half hour, trying to calm my thoughts. My cousin came in halfway through, noticed I was pale, and offered me a leftover donut like I was a kid who just got dumped at recess. I declined. I couldn't eat. Then, a new message buzzed on my phone. From Kendra. No words, just a photo. It was our living room. Except now, it looked sterile. She had rearranged the furniture, removed the art I hung, and replaced the rug I bought with one of those abstract things that looks like spilled wine and anxiety. And on the coffee table, our coffee table, sat 2 wine glasses and a bottle of red. The caption? Trying to make space feel fresh again. You'd like it. Smiley face. I dropped the phone like it burned. I didn't respond. I couldn't. That smiley face, that emoji, was like a bullet wrapped in a silk ribbon. She wanted me to approve of the replacement, to nod along while she rewrote our shared life with someone else's fingerprints. But I wasn't done. Not yet. If she wanted to erase me, she'd have to work harder. Because what she didn't know was that her former co-tenant still had access to more than the Google Drive. I still had the joint bank login. Still had shared access to the cat's vet account. Still had the Dropbox folder she used to back up everything she was too lazy to file properly. And what I found in that Dropbox was far worse than a budget or a real estate email. It was a video file, titled Palm Springs Weekend.mov. My hands were shaking as I clicked play. I didn't want to press play. My instincts were screaming. Every rational part of my brain, what was left of it, told me to just close the window, walk away, pretend I never saw the file. But curiosity is a parasite. It digs into your chest and convinces you that pain is better than uncertainty. So I pressed it, clicked play, and sat back with a stomach already tightening like a fist. The screen went black for a few seconds, then opened with a shaky shot of a hotel room, one I recognized. The same hotel in Palm Springs that Kendra and I had planned to visit for our anniversary before she said work got in the way. I remember offering to postpone. I told her it didn't matter if we celebrated late. She smiled and said she'd already canceled the reservation. She hadn't. In the video, she's laughing, wearing a sundress I'd bought her last Christmas, the one she said made her feel a little too girly. But there she was, twirling in it, grinning at someone behind the camera. Her voice sounded younger, lighter, freer. I hadn't heard her sound like that in years. Maybe never. Then the camera turns. It's him, Zach. No tie, sunglasses, shirt halfway unbuttoned like he's auditioning for a cologne commercial. He turns it on himself, then swings the lens back to her. Say something to the camera, he jokes. Kendra leans in, kisses his cheek, and whispers, I told you he'd never find out. That's when I paused it, froze the frame, sat there breathing so shallowly it felt like I might suffocate. There was no more room for excuses, no more space to interpret things generously. This wasn't a slip. It wasn't something that just happened during a bad week. She had planned it. She had counted on my silence, on me being too passive, too soft, too oblivious to ever question her. And the worst part? She wasn't wrong. I had allowed this. Not the cheating, never that. But I had allowed myself to become a version of me that was so easy to overlook. It had made her believe I would never leave. I shut the laptop, sat in silence for over an hour, unable to move. The weight of betrayal is strange, not heavy, not sharp. It's more like waterlogged clothing. It clings. It pulls. It makes even breathing feel like a chore. I barely slept that night. When morning came, I did the first active thing I'd done since leaving. I made a list. Not of revenge, I'm not that guy, but of truths. Things I needed to face. Things I needed to fix. Things I should have done years ago. At the top of the list was, get off the lease. So I called the landlord. Told him I wanted my name removed immediately. He said he'd need confirmation from Kendra. I said I'd get it. Then I opened my email and wrote to her. Subject, release. Hey Kendra, since you're working with Zach to assume the apartment and possibly sell or sublet it, please send the necessary paperwork to remove my name from the lease. I'd like this finalized by the end of the week. I won't delay your plans. Also, I suggest you check your Dropbox permissions. Some of your private files are still visible. Might want to clean that up. Sheldon. No anger. No threats. Just facts. I wanted her to know I saw the video, without giving her the satisfaction of seeing me bleed. I wanted her to sit with it, alone. She responded in less than 15 minutes. The message was bizarre. Defensive. Rambling. She claimed the video was old, said nothing happened, said I was twisting things, said she couldn't believe I'd go through her files. Then, in the same breath, she said she missed me. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just scared. You were so comfortable, and I wasn't. I felt stuck. I don't even know if Zach means anything. I was just lost. Lost. 5 years of devotion, and she was lost. I didn't reply. Not then. But something happened later that day that forced my hand. My cousin, who'd been staying mostly quiet this whole time, knocked on my door. He was holding a thick envelope. Said someone had dropped it off for me. No postage, no return address, just my name in her handwriting. I opened it on the porch. Inside was a photo album. Our photo album. But all the pictures of us, the trips, the birthdays, the Christmases, they were covered with sticky notes. Literal post-its. With handwritten captions like, did we even like each other here? I don't remember this being as fun as it looks. You always looked sad. At the end of the album, tucked in the final sleeve, was a folded letter. One line, scrawled in black ink. Tell me who we were, Sheldon. Because I honestly don't know anymore. I stared at that sentence for a long, long time. And when I looked up, standing on the sidewalk across from the house, was Kendra, watching. She didn't wave. She didn't call out. She just stood there, arms crossed, sunglasses on, her expression unreadable, as if she were watching a stranger's life instead of her own fallout. For a moment, I wondered if she had driven all the way across town just to drop that photo album off personally. Or maybe she wanted to catch a glimpse of me, see how broken I was, measure the impact of her exit like a scientist observing a failed experiment. But I didn't give her the performance. I closed the door. My cousin asked if everything was okay. I said yes. I lied. Not because I wanted to protect her, not anymore, but because I didn't know what to say. How do you explain to someone that your ex-girlfriend just delivered you 5 years of manipulated memories in a scrapbook and then stared at you like she expected applause? That night, I stared at the album again. I told myself I wouldn't, that I'd toss it, burn it, dump it in the recycling. But I couldn't. Some sick part of me kept flipping through it, picture after picture. And those notes, those horrible little sticky notes, they kept scratching at something deeper than rage. Because they weren't lies. They weren't exactly true, either. They were distortions, bent versions of moments I had once held sacred. A photo from our 3rd anniversary dinner, where I'd cooked her favorite lemon pasta from scratch. Her note over that one read, "You always needed everything to be perfect." Exhausting. Another one, from a beach trip where we got caught in the rain and laughed like kids. Her note said, "You were clingy that weekend." I felt trapped. It wasn't just that she was rewriting the past. It was that she seemed to genuinely believe it. Like she had taken the best parts of us and dragged them through some cynical filter that turned joy into obligation and affection into pressure. And that's when it hit me. She hadn't just fallen out of love. She had buried it. Buried us. Dismantled us in her mind long before she introduced me as her roommate to those people at the party. That wasn't a mistake. That was the truth as she saw it. I'd become a placeholder in her life. A person-shaped comfort zone she wanted to escape from. But that still didn't explain the way she was acting now. The album, the texts, the emails, watching me from the street like some misplaced ghost. Why reach out if she'd already erased me? I got my answer 2 days later. An envelope arrived at my cousin's house, this time with postage. My name and address scribbled in her hurried, always a bit slanted handwriting. I assumed it was more guilt mail. Another symbolic gesture meant to unload her conscience. But when I opened it, I found something I hadn't expected at all. A letter from her lawyer. Not about the apartment. Not about the lease. But about a storage unit. Apparently, during the early months of our relationship, Kendra had rented a small storage locker downtown. I never knew about it. I assumed all her stuff lived with us, in closets, in drawers, under the bed like a normal person's. But she had kept a separate space all this time. And now, according to the letter, she wanted me to visit it. There was a key enclosed, and a sticky note, this one in her handwriting. "Please go, before I clear it out. There's something in there I can't carry anymore." I stared at that key for a long time. I could have thrown it away, could have ignored it, but she'd chosen not to just get rid of whatever was inside. She wanted me to see it first, which meant it mattered, which meant it probably hurt. So, against my better judgment, I went. The storage facility was one of those generic chain places with fluorescent lights and a keypad at the entrance. The kind of place where secrets live in cardboard boxes, forgotten baby clothes, and old trophies that no one wants to throw away. I punched in the code she'd written on the envelope, walked down the corridor, found the unit, B117, unlocked it, and what I saw inside nearly dropped me to my knees. The entire space, maybe 8 by 10 feet, was filled with things I hadn't seen in years. My old guitar, the first blanket we ever bought together, the mugs from our road trip to New Mexico, the painting I did for her birthday that she said wasn't her style, and dozens of boxes labeled Sheldon, filled with cards I'd written, gifts I'd given, even receipts from places we'd been together. But in the back, on a small fold-out table, was a single item that didn't belong. A framed photo. Of me. Not us, just me. Sitting on the couch, laughing at something off camera. I didn't even remember the picture being taken. But in it, I looked happy. Genuinely happy. Open. Alive. Taped to the glass was one more note. "I didn't know what to do with this version of you, so I put him here." I think part of me hoped I'd find him again. I backed out of that unit like it was on fire. Whatever guilt she was feeling now wasn't for me. It was for him, the man in that photo. The version of me she'd driven into silence. the one she no longer deserved. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I had to do. The version of me she stored away in that locker, the man in the photo she couldn't look at but also couldn't throw away, he'd been buried under 5 years of compromise, gaslighting, guilt, and passivity. But standing there in that concrete tomb of forgotten memories, surrounded by boxes of things she had once hidden from herself, something shifted inside me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel confused. I didn't feel desperate. I felt done. I closed the unit. Left everything exactly as it was. She wanted me to go in there and reclaim a part of myself, or maybe absolve her. I did neither. That storage space? It wasn't mine anymore. It was a museum curated by someone who had rewritten history, labeled artifacts, and staged exhibits to justify her betrayal. She could keep it. Let her pay rent on her regret. But I wasn't done making peace with the past. That night, I drove back to the apartment. Not to see her, not to confront her, but to finish something. I waited in my car across the street until the lights went out. 10:42 p.m. Typical Kendra, she never made it past the first act of any movie without falling asleep. I'd watched it 1,000 times from our old couch, her legs curled under mine while I listened to her breathe. That was a different lifetime. Once I was sure she was asleep, I walked around to the back entrance, used the spare key I never returned, and stepped into the hallway. Everything smelled the same, lavender and wine. But it felt colder, quieter, like a house with its soul ripped out. I didn't touch anything. I didn't take anything. I just walked through each room slowly, deliberately. The living room, where I once proposed the idea of moving in together. The kitchen, where we fought about groceries and made peace with pizza. The bathroom, where she once cried for 20 minutes over a bad day and let me hold her like she needed me. The bedroom, where silence had grown between us like mold. Then I reached my old nightstand. Still there. Still untouched. I opened the drawer. Everything I had left behind was still in place. My spare glasses, a broken watch, an old note she once left me after a fight. I'm sorry I made you feel small. You never are to me. I folded the note and slipped it into my pocket. Then I placed something else in its place, something I had written earlier that day, carefully, without venom or blame. It was a letter. Short. Simple. I forgive you. Not because you asked. Not because you earned it. But because I can't keep carrying a version of us that only existed in my head. I was there. I was real. I loved you. But I'm not your roommate. Not anymore. Not ever again. I placed it carefully in the drawer, closed it, and left without looking back. The next morning, my phone buzzed at exactly 7:14 a.m. A text from Kendra. You were here? No question mark. No accusations. Just a statement. I didn't respond. I was already 2 cities away, sitting in a cafe off the interstate with a cup of coffee that tasted like actual freedom. But I knew she'd keep reaching out. And I was right. Later that day, she sent a voice message. I didn't want to listen. I stared at the notification on my phone for half an hour, debating whether I could take more of her voice without unraveling again. But curiosity, the same parasite that made me open that video, the same one that took me to the storage unit, won again. I pressed play. She sounded tired. Not sad. Not angry. Just tired. Like someone who had finally realized the damage they'd done but didn't know how to clean up the wreckage. I saw the letter. I don't know if I deserve your forgiveness. I probably don't. I was awful to you. Not just at the end. For a long time. I think I got scared when I realized you loved me more than I loved myself. And instead of growing into that, I resented it. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. I see you now. And I'm sorry. I saved the message. Not because I wanted it, but because I knew, one day, I might need a reminder that none of this was imagined. That I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't a ghost haunting someone else's life. I was real. I was there. And I had finally left. But then, 3 days later, when I was finally beginning to feel free, when I had started looking for a studio of my own, even reached out to an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. She showed up. Not at the apartment. Not at my cousin's. At my work. She walked into the front lobby of the marketing agency I just started freelancing with and asked the receptionist for me by name. When I came out, heart pounding, face pale, she was standing there in the middle of the lobby like a storm wrapped in perfume and panic. She smiled. Not the smug kind. Not the manipulative one I'd grown used to, but a broken one. And then she said it. 5 words I never thought I'd hear her say. I think I made a mistake. There was a time not so long ago when those 5 words, I think I made a mistake, would have knocked the air out of me. A time when I would have dropped everything, forgiven too quickly, and convinced myself that love could survive being stomped on if I just held it tighter. But now, standing in the middle of my new office lobby, with my boss peering out from her glass office and my coworkers pretending not to stare, I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel desperate. I felt calm. Kendra looked different. Not in the dramatic movie makeover kind of way, but in that quiet, haunted way people do when they've been sitting alone with the truth for too long. Her hair was tied back, her makeup minimal, and her posture, always so put together, looked uncertain for the first time in years. I asked her if she wanted to go outside, and we stepped into the sunlit plaza across the street, the sound of traffic washing over our silence. We sat on a bench I usually ate lunch on, and for a while, neither of us said anything. I could see she was waiting for me to speak first, but I didn't give her that. She'd done the damage. This wasn't my fire to put out. Eventually, she started. She told me she'd been going to therapy, something she'd once dismissed as navel-gazing nonsense. She admitted she had sabotaged our relationship because deep down, she believed she didn't deserve to be loved the way I loved her, without conditions, without keeping score. She said she was ashamed, and that no amount of justifying or explaining could make her actions okay. And then, for the first time in all our years together, she said something that landed with brutal, unexpected clarity. You were never small. I just kept shrinking you in my mind because I didn't want to feel how big your love was. And I'm sorry I called you my roommate. That was the most cowardly thing I've ever done. I didn't say much in return. I told her I appreciated the honesty. I told her I hoped she kept going to therapy and that maybe one day she'd be able to love someone without destroying them first. She nodded. She didn't ask for another chance, and I think that was the first time she truly respected me. We parted with a handshake. No promises. No lingering glances. Just two people who had finally stopped pretending. And you know what? That was the closure I needed. In the weeks that followed, my life started piecing itself back together, not all at once, and not with the clean symmetry you hope for, but in small, meaningful ways. I got my own place. A tiny apartment with squeaky floors and terrible parking, but it was mine. I bought a used guitar and started playing again. I met people. Not for anything serious, just dinners, conversations, laughter that didn't feel like walking on eggshells. And then, one evening, I went to an open mic night downtown. My cousin dared me to play. I told the story, briefly, before strumming a slow, clumsy version of a song I'd written years ago but never played for anyone. It was raw, probably terrible. But when I finished, there was a woman sitting at the bar, smiling in that unforced, honest way I hadn't seen in what felt like forever. Her name was Ren. Unusual name. Quiet energy. She didn't say much, but when she spoke, it felt like she saw me, not a role, not a project, not a placeholder. Just me. We've been talking ever since. No pressure. No big expectations. Just two people taking steps forward. So yes, this story began with humiliation. With betrayal, self-doubt, and the kind of pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. But it ends here, not in dramatic revenge or some fairy tale twist, but in something better. Peace. Growth. A future that finally feels mine. And the best part? I'm no one's roommate. Not anymore.